Make sure that, can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you, Marcus.
All right, fantastic. So I'm going to give the mic to Robert, and Robert's going to get us started.
All right, excellent. So we're about to begin the first part of the webinar, where we're going to talk about breach and attack simulations and how they're used with the NIST framework. At Threatcare, we use the NIST framework as a baseline when we're talking about security. Afterwards, Marcus Carey will show the practical applications of breach and attack simulations. Breach and attack simulations are also known as BAS, and is a quickly growing product offering that acts as an attacker in a system. It's a proactive form of defense and fulfills many requirements across not just the NIST framework, but also other regulatory requirements as well. So my name is Robert Willis. I'm an enterprise security consultant at Threatcare. I've built many security programs and have worked very deeply with the NIST framework at Threatcare for our clients. Marcus Carey needs no introduction. He's the CEO of Threatcare, and he will follow afterwards with practical applications of breach and attack simulations. So where did the NIST framework come from? In 2013, an executive order was signed to, quote, enhance the security and resilience of the nation's critical infrastructure and to maintain a cyber environment that encourages efficiency, innovation, economic prosperity while promoting safety, security, business confidentiality, privacy, and civil liberties. NIST was selected for the task of developing the framework because they're a non-regulatory federal agency that acts as an unbiased source of scientific data and practices. This mission is to promote U.S. innovation and industrial competitiveness. They have a long history of successfully addressing critical national issues through partnerships with industry, academia, and other government agencies. So why NIST? NIST was and continues to be developed and promoted through ongoing engagement with and input from stakeholders in government, industry, and academia. It's a framework chosen by many organizations to build their security program and is great to build off of for specific regulatory needs. At Threatcare, we work with clients to use NIST as the core of their security program, then expand on it to map to requirements in everything from ISO 27001 to SOC 2 and GDPR. Complying isn't just about having controls in place, it's about proving that they're working and being used, supported with evidence, including proper documentation and logs. I just wanted to give an announcement for everyone coming late to this webinar. We will be having a giveaway at the end, which will be a free copy of the book Tribe of Hackers, which is due out in the next couple of weeks. So breach and attack simulation, and specifically Threatcare's BAS software, tests controls in place and provides forensic level reports that create a paper trail proving that not only are controls in place, but they're being tested, are working, and being improved where they're found to be inefficient. Breach and attack simulation works with multiple parts of the NIST framework, including support and validation for the identify, protect, detect, and response sections within the framework. Within the response section of NIST, it clearly states that forensics must be performed, notifications from detection systems must be investigated, and that activities must be performed to prevent the expansion of an event. Also mitigate its effects and resolve the incident. This is clearly talking about software like SIMs and IDS and IPSs, but how do you know that they're even working properly? How is it possible to know for certain if your software is effective testing products in your security stack? How can controls be in place if they aren't working in terms of security? Test it, then using a BAS solution that maps to the MITRE ATT&CK Framework to act as a malicious actor would. If your controls in place aren't working from an improper setup or the inability to log events, not only are you being not compliant with this framework, but are also possibly vulnerable to a malicious actor. It also clearly states in the response section of the NIST framework that incidents must be contained. But if you're unable to understand what's happening due to misconfigurations or a faulty product, understanding an incident could end up being like finding a needle in a haystack in many situations. It isn't enough to just check a box claiming that you have a product that covers aspects of NIST. You must also demonstrate that they are effective. So organizational response activities must be improved by incorporating lessons learned from current and previous events. What better way to establish a paper trail of testing and remediation than to have a documented simulations using a BAS solution? This also can be covered throughout the detect portion of the NIST framework, especially the very direct quote, which requires that detection processes are tested, which is a testament to not just the existence of BAS, but the requirement of it at an organization. So just as previously mentioned in the response section of NIST, if tools aren't tested, then how can they be validated as working? The detect portion of NIST also requires that malicious code is detected, networks are monitored, and that information systems and assets are monitored to identify cybersecurity events, and that the effectiveness of protective measures are verified. The only way to verify is through testing, and if controls aren't tested, how can a security professional claim that they are protected by their tools? Under the Identify section of NIST, specifically under governance, it is a requirement for legal and regulatory requirements regarding cybersecurity, including privacy and civil liberties obligations, to be understood and managed. A quick way to verify an aspect of the proper management of PII in systems, which can include social security numbers, credit card numbers, and other sensitive information, is to quickly test if a low privilege user is able to take these files out of a system. So not only can BAS quickly verify if this is able to be done, but it can also verify if the events are being detected by having all the bells and whistles of a system's data loss prevention software set off during the test being done. And finally, in the protect portion of the NIST framework, you can quickly check if the principle of police functionality is incorporated into systems to provide only the essential capabilities for the employees. By testing, they're able to do executable transfers, if users are able to perform actions such as lateral movements and many other functions that shouldn't be able to be performed within one's job function. Akin to the detect portion of NIST, which clearly states that detection processes are tested, under protect, it states that the effectiveness of protection technologies is shared and that protection process is improved. To be as secure as possible, the effectiveness of protection technologies should be tested in a proactive way and not just in a reactionary way due to the possibility of misconfigurations or failure. You want to make sure that you're prepared and everything's working as good as possible. A solid solution to provide evidence of the effectiveness of these protection technologies is to simulate attacks and show in real time that protection processes are actually working. If they aren't working, there will then be documentation on them being improved after changes are made and another test is run, which just happens to be another requirement within the NIST framework. So if you're looking, the end of this section, if you're looking to build or expand your security program or would like to learn more about breach and attack simulations, you can visit Threatcare.com or you can contact sales@threatcare.com. If you have a specific question for me, you can email me at robert@threatcare.com. This is the end of this opening portion of the webinar. Coming up next is Marcus Carey.
So before we get started, I just want to pause real quick and know if there's any questions so far on what we've covered. So Jen, are there any questions yet in the comment section?
I do not see any yet, but if y'all have any, please type them in the QA or the chat and we will get those answered for you.
Yeah, so I'll wait a second, but so if you have those questions, I'm gonna take a little bit of time here to explain to you what we're gonna do. So I think Robert did a great introduction of how at Threatcare we focus on using and implementing the NIST cybersecurity framework with our clients. And with that, we're not just trying to make up excuses why you need to get breach and attack simulation testing or why you have to use our product. Anybody that knows me is, you know that I just want people to be secure. And so there's definitely several breach and attack simulation providers out there. There's open source tools, but since we built the company, we built the breach and attack simulation. I kind of can quote the famous line or paraphrase it from Full Metal Jacket. There are many breach and attack simulation platforms, but this breach and attack simulation platform is mine. So I'm going to go over that in a wee bit. Jen, do we have any questions so far? If not, I will continue.
No questions.
All right, fantastic. So Rob must have did an amazing job so far. We're gonna have to buy that boy some brisket. All right, so what the document that I have in front of me is a NIST document. This is the document. We actually covered a little bit of this document in our last webinar. So it's very important for me as a company to build this off on standards. And so we have a product, of course, but I want you to understand that you don't need to use a product to be able to do some of this testing. Unfortunately, the last time I looked a week ago, the government shutdown is affecting, accessibility to some of these documents. But if you hit me up, I'll give you some links you can still get access to these documents. So what I like to do, I'm kind of an old school country boy. I still like RFPs. I still look at documents just to get to the core of what we're all talking about here. So by getting this document, like I said, you can email me, marcus@threatcare.com. If you don't have the document, we'll get you the document if you can't find it online. So what's cool about this document, there's a couple things I love about it. Of course, you have the 5 functionalities of the core framework here: identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. This is what Rob was talking about. And so in many of these sections, definitely Rob talked about detect, respond, and things of that nature. You can definitely test these things out to make sure that they're working as you think they should be working. So what I'm going to do before I go down, so these are the framework's core, the core functions. But what I really like about this is I like these implementation tiers. So if you go to 2-2, these implementation tiers are pretty dope, because what they do is they help the organization determine how good they are. So the document says they shouldn't be used as a maturity model, but they absolutely can be used, in my opinion, as somewhat of a maturity model. Because if you look at it, so there's not a tier 0 on here, but if you're not doing anything related to the particular topics, and we're going to look at inside the detect and respond, and you'll be able to map how good you are in those particular areas that we're going to quickly look at. And so partially, that this basically means that you have somewhat of a deal, but if you're adaptive, that means you're on the ball. And so all of your security programs, if you're trying to build a program, this is why I really like the cybersecurity framework, because what it allows you to do is it allows you to get some really good context, and it allows you to communicate in a better way to your management. Again, also, you're probably running into the problem, and most people I talk to will tell me stuff like, well, management doesn't understand, management doesn't believe me. That's why it's always good to break out a document like something from NIST, because then you could have them as the authority, and then you could just play dumb. You can I don't know, but NIST says do this, right? So basically, you can use NIST as your authority. Essentially, to use a phrase, it can be your Bible for your security program. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, and so basically the framework, as we said before, use the framework to build out the security program, right? And what's cool about this, I'm going to go down to the sections that I think that Bash is most appropriate for real quick. And those, the 2 areas that I really like, especially the detection piece, I really like digging into it, and I'm gonna expand this a little bit right here. All right, so the first thing here, anomalies and events section. This is a subcategory that you could check out. And what I like about the cybersecurity framework, again, if you haven't taken a look at it, it actually gives you more documentation. These NIST I love NIST documents, so the NIST 853 is going to give you way more information, and you can actually develop policies based on this guidance. So if looking through this, if you don't have any policy in place, this will be a great starting place to start creating your own policy. But here it says a baseline of network operations and expected data flows for users and systems is established and managed, right? Now, there's going to be a lot of times that people say, yeah, we know this. I'm going to take a drink for a second. For those people that are Topo Chico lovers out there, I want to give a shout out to Topo Chico real quick. It's my beverage of choice for wetting my palate. The next thing we're going to talk about here is the AE2, DE-AE2. It says detected events are analyzed to understand attack, targets, and methods. So now, I think a lot of organizations, a lot of organizations get attacked all the time. But what I like about breach and attack simulation, how it fits into here quite well, is that you can do different techniques and tactics that attackers do, so you can understand if you have that coverage. I'll give a couple of really good examples. So, stuff like DNS tunneling or something like that. Could you detect if DNS tunneling was actively going on your network? I don't know. A lot of people struggle with that. And a lot of really good organizations struggle with that, by the way. Can you tell if someone is actively doing lateral movement? And a lot of organizations struggle with that. But if you had a way to repeat that behavior, you're going to be able to better be able to detect those anomalies when they come up. Next, we're going to look at AE3. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. Event data are collected and correlated from multiple sources and sensors. And what's kind of funny about here, I like the way data is plural there. This is just a kind of a crazy little tick of mine. I love grammar. Data is in a plural form there. But other than that, I'm crazy. Forgive me. You have sometimes people have SIMs or Splunk or Greylog or something of that nature. Now, I have a really good friend that did a lot of network stuff for the government or for government organizations, and he would go into some networks and there would be like 10 IDS sensors, and he told me there was one case where only 2 of those IDSs was actively detecting traffic. So the question is, how are you detecting the traffic? If it may be, you may be detecting the traffic, but what if you have a SIM and you're expecting the data to be collected there? What are you doing about that? Do you know that the SIM is definitely firing? Do you know your endpoints are firing? Also, a really good example of this, and you might, I don't know if y'all heard this before. I had some really good friends that when TJ Maxx got hacked a couple of years ago, TJ Maxx, somebody in TJ Maxx shut off alerts from their antivirus. This is what the story I've heard. And the story goes like the hackers that use stuff were using stuff like cracking software, Gartner variety stuff, PW dump, stuff that should have been detected and was detected actually on the endpoint. So the endpoint is detecting, but the alerts aren't being sent to the central console because whoever's working there is like, we're getting too many false positives, right? So here's a great example. There was a false positive thing. I believe breach and attack simulations can help out with false positives. Breach and attack simulation can send those kind of, in some cases, benign files or executables for you to be able to detect as well. And also from that standpoint where I also heard with the target breach, similar kind of situation where they were actually getting the alerts, but the alerts were ignored. That's what I heard. So the event data is collected, but also from a personnel perspective, what are they doing with the data once they see it? Breach and attack simulations can also be used to simulate those malicious people, so they can determine. And the next one is AE4, which talks about the impact of the events. It's determined. How are you determining the impact of an event, right? If you detect something like PW dump on an endpoint, like I was saying, or if you look, if you discover tools, what's his name, General Kiwi tool, Mimikatz or something like that. So essentially, what is the impact? If that's on your endpoint, what the heck's going on? Also, can your personnel, is that data been collected? Is that data been sent from the endpoint to your log management system? Is that log management system being alerted? So I think it's a cascade of events that you can have, that you can see here. Also, I like this AE5. It's talking about incident alert thresholds. Now, why this is super important here is because, like, excuse me, many devices, they come out of the box, and they're not going to be any good out of the box typically. So you're going to have to tune that, and you're going to have to determine, even if there are false positives, you have to learn how to tune those out on the network. All right, now we're going to get to the security continuous monitoring piece. This DECM. The network is monitored to detect cybersecurity events. Again, same kind of thing. Now, I know that people use our tool and people may use other breach and attack simulation tools. The first reaction that they have is, "Wow, I'm doing all this stuff and it's not being detected." And the truth is, like with our product, we're trying to throw you some softballs, even stuff that you should absolutely detect, but organizations can't detect them. But that shouldn't be like, if you're saying that these things are in place, and many organizations do, like how are you validating that those things are done? All right, cool. So physical environment is monitored and detect. So this is where stuff like physical pen tests come in, by the way. And so that's not directly related to what we do as a company, but what I want to emphasize here is how awesome this is. You have to be, if you take this and implement it in your organization is going to be way better off. All right, cool. So CM3, this is pretty interesting here. It says personnel activity is monitored to detect potential cybersecurity events. So our software, one of the cool things about our software is that when sometimes when software is ran, either that software is running as a system or user level. So our software is ran as a user level because it's installed at the user level. So when a user uses it, and I know that some SIMs, some detection devices or whatever, they respond different according to what level there are. Also, just practically thinking, do you have the intel in your organization to say, maybe Bobby works in accounting. So if you saw sensitive data coming from accounting or HR, that might be quite interesting, to say the least, or anything. How are you making those decisions, and do you have the intel to do that? Malicious code detection. There's a lot of different ways to do this. You can download an eCart file and test out if your endpoint's detecting that and if it's monitored. So there's many different ways to actually test these things out. But time and time again, what we see from organizations is that they don't do it. And so I'll show you an example of an example. I highly encourage you to do this. CM6 is a great example. A lot of people are outsourcing their stuff to people like Dell, SecureWorks, or other MSSPs. Is your MSSP detecting anomalies on your network? and meaning that you're paying them a nice chunk of change to monitor your network. How do you validate your MSSP is actually monitoring doing what they say they do? You feel me? So these things, like I said, you can go through here and based on, and we want to keep this short and actionable. Everything we do at Threatcare is we want it to be easy and we want it to be actionable. So I believe that anybody can go in here, look at this document, run breach and attack simulations, and be able to quickly go through and evaluate your program, and if you could actually do these kind of things. And this is like just go through here. Is this information being communicated somehow? Are the detection processes being confused? That's going to be over time that you have to do that. What roles and responsibilities do you have when it comes to detection and all those different things? You can use breach and attack simulations to test those things. But what I want to get back to this one more time. I'm going to go back to the tiers. So you go through this, you run the breach and attack simulations, and then you get back to this piece where you judge where you are from a tier perspective. If you're at tier 4, you're doing an amazing bang-up job, but you might be at a tier 1, and the mythical tier 0 is that you don't have anything in place and you have no clue. But I'm a big fan of G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe used to always say, knowing is half the battle. And so I would rather know that I'm a 0 than have no clue at all. So I hope that makes sense. And this is like, we're at 32 minutes, so thank you for attending the webinar. We're going to take some questions, but I highly encourage you to stay tuned in. We're going to be doing monthly webinars, and we're going to be giving you practical, actionable, and easy things to implement in your organization. I'm not done yet. I'm going to just show you real quick how easy it is to do breach and attack simulations with our BAS product. It's a free download. You can start playing around with that today. So let me go down here, open up the product. One of the things that Robert mentioned is he mentioned credit card information, PII data, things of that nature. So if you had DLP in place and you wanted to test out whether credit cards were detected, you type in credit, you can type in that, will tell you, okay, cool, you can run a simulation. You click on that and it's sending those payloads. Those payloads are plain text credit cards, and we do encrypted credit cards because some people are trying to break SSL, right? Under playbooks, you can actually run multiple simulations. Like if you did credit card content here, or you ran DNS tests. Remember I told you that some people struggle to detect DNS tunneling. I can do that. If I want to specifically try to see what I can do regarding to DNS tunneling, if I want to send medical records out of my network, maybe that's important to you. I'm sending these medical records out here. They're all encoded as well. So those are the kind of things you can do for detection. If you wanted to test out lateral movement, you can test out all those things. So our product is pretty cool. Like I said, you can go and start playing with this immediately on our site. You can also, with our product, you can create playbooks, your own playbooks where you drag and drop different tactics and techniques. You can sort those out in particular orders. You can save it and you can run those as well. So that's how our product allows you to do it simple, easy. Like I said, easy and effectiveness and being effective at what you're doing. I highly encourage you to get your hands on this document and start doing a self-evaluation of your cybersecurity program. And just reading through the documentation, it tells you all the stuff that you do. It will help you create policies and all those different things. I asked for questions earlier. Jen, do we have any questions?
Still no questions at this point. It sounds like y'all are just doing such a great job of explaining everything.
That's great. I feel like a chef. I'm just feeding Just keep on feeding information to the people. So basically, what we're going to do here, we're gonna ask the question, and we're going to ask the question, and we're going to give away a book. Okay. So the question we're going to ask today, and the only thing you have to do is hit us up. You got to at Threatcare. Our Twitter handle is at Threatcare, and tell us on there, if you do it on there, tell us what you learned during this webinar, or something that was insightful that you're gonna take away and try to implement in your organization. Tell us that at Threatcare, and we're gonna hook you up with a free copy of Tribe of Hackers. If you go on our blog, definitely has a couple of previews of what that book, the content of that book is going to be. We gave some sneak previews on there, but the book's amazing. We have 50 highly respected people that have given us interviews to help people build cybersecurity careers, programs, and some personal advice on how they keep it all together. So that's it. Jen, I'm going to check in one more time for questions. So what you have to do at Threatcare, tell us what piece of advice or what thing you picked up from this webinar that you're going to implement in your organization, and you'll get a free copy of that book sent to you. Are there any questions so far, Jen?
Still no questions.
All right, cool. I'm happy. Hopefully y'all thought this was a good use of your time. We're going to keep all our webinars from 30 to 45 minutes, and we're going to try to keep them very actionable for your organization. Contact our website is threatcare.com, of course. If you wanted to talk to Rob or whatever about how we can help your organization out in particular, if you need help building a security program, if you need help with testing your security program, if you want to download our app, we highly encourage you to do that. So we help organizations prove that they're secure. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next webinar.
And this webinar has been recorded, so it will be sent out via email afterwards in case you would like to share it or in case you missed any part of it. So thank y'all so much for joining, and we'll see you for the next one.